The beats, the flow, the rhythm. All movements start from the streets. Streets A&R Podcast.
Mic check. We recording?
You know it.
Yeah, red light on. Welcome to the Streets A&R Podcast. It's your host, Getty Jicky with it.
This your girl, CLB.
And we got another guest in the house. I told you we was going to run them up this year. We trying to make sure we get people in who really got some information, some knowledge, and something to really say out here. Mm-hmm. Y'all think Omaha's sweet. It ain't. It is sweet. Home sweet home. But we really get to it out here. And the more we get in this business, especially me as a newcomer in this business, the more I find out Omaha really be doing the damn thing. Oh, yeah. And the people from here that have went elsewhere to get it done. So today we got a name that if you've been in the business in here, from the East Coast to the West Coast, you know this guy. He be running names down to me that he be like, I be trying to come up with ideas and say stuff. He be like, yeah, I was just on the phone with such and such right there, and be dead ass serious. So what y'all want to do? I'm like, look, it ain't up to me. Yeah. But somebody who has been, if you've seen any of our OGs out here on the podcast, the original crews, somebody who was running with them that really did it, made it happen. One of the pioneers in the radio game here in Omaha, Nebraska, especially when we classify as urban radio. He's behind really doing that. Yes. Pushing the culture forward, getting in the music industry. Don't be shaking your shoulders like, not really, whatever, fool.
It's a couple things.
A few things. I can't get to them. I don't know them all. That's why you here. We got none other than, do you say DJ still?
You can say whatever you like.
Man, we going to say DJ Rip, just for the humble, man. DJ Rip here, man.
Say what you like, just spell my name right.
Yeah. All right, it's Rip. It's just Rip. I'm like,
it's just three letters.
3 letters.
One word.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming, man.
Man, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank you.
So we're going to get into we always like to start with just introducing you to the people. So let the people know who you are, what you do, and we'll start to dive deeper into what you've done and accomplished and what you're currently doing. So who are you, Rip?
Okay, so my name is Rip. Yes, I'm a DJ. I've been DJing since 1984. Wow. So I'm 84, 85. So it's really 40 years of my life and career. Really quickly, a snapshot. So, you guys, I'm assuming you're going to ask the questions. I don't need to dig too deep right now. But, I'm a DJ, producer, songwriter, a manager. I don't know. It really is a lot. I mean, I can't act like it's not. But for all intents and purposes, I'm an organizer. I have a management company called the Spin Firm, and I represent and I've worked with hundreds of artists in hip hop and in the music industry. So, I was, radio, promotion, sales, a little bit of everything. So, I just look at myself as a student and a connoisseur of hip hop culture, and professionally, I'm a manager.
Gotcha.
Love it.
And producer.
Gotcha. And it's gonna be a lot because we got so much we could dig into. We do not have the time to get into everything, but I do want to hear about kind of like your origins here in Omaha, and what did you help build and bridge here in the city, and who did you kind of do those things with?
Okay, so, well, like I said, I look, when I was in elementary school, I got the bug of hip hop early in 79, 80, 81, when Rappers Delight came out, Christmas rapping, Curtis Blow, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five, the Funky 4+1, when I saw him on Saturday Night Live. Again, I'm a kid, right? I'm like, 7, 8 years old. So I don't really know what I'm hearing or looking at, but it's interesting. So then you fast forward 81, 2, 3, as hip hop starts to evolve a little bit more And again, we're in Omaha, Nebraska. As we know, hip hop was started in the Bronx and in New York in the early 70s. But once the rap records came out, everybody outside of New York got a chance to experience this cultural phenomenon that was bubbling and growing. So Omaha was no different, just a lot smaller. But as a child, I'm kind of seeing it and hearing it a little bit. And then, you know, these songs are playing, and I was in elementary school and they were playing music in the lunchroom. And I went to Minnelusa.
Wow.
I grew up in the Miller Park area. So Miller Park, I know a lot of people call it Killer Park and all of that, and I get it. But I grew up in the Miller Park area. I went to Minnelusa for elementary school. Then I went to McMillan for junior high. So it kind of started in like 81, 82, just kind of getting sprinkles of the music in elementary school. But then when I went to the 7th grade, junior high, McMillan is when my life started. That's when I understood and learned that there was girls and music, right?
Mustache grew in.
Right. So, you know, 1984, a movie called Beat Street comes out. So prior to Beat Street, I was trying my best to beatbox, trying my best to do graffiti, trying my best to rap and dance, and I wasn't very good at either of those, right? So I can draw, but I wasn't ready to go and spray paint the wall, but I could draw. So I would do little tags, you know, and all that stuff in my house. Again, I'm a kid, and you know, I'm going to record stores and going to places and seeing these compilation albums. They were these K-Tel compilation albums, and they would have all these hip hop songs on them. I didn't know it was called hip hop or rap music, but it had these songs. And I remember hearing a couple of them in elementary school and then going into junior high. Then the movie Beat Street comes out. Boom. And I see Beat Street. Mind you, I'm 12 years old. Okay. So the movie Beat Street comes out, and I'm like, yes, that's it. I want to be a DJ, because I wasn't that good at any of the other stuff. Not really. So when I saw Beat Street was the first time in 1984. And then literally that same year, I saw the movie Breakin'. Okay. Now, Wild Style is the first hip hop film, but in 83, but you know, we're in the Midwest, we're in Omaha. I didn't get a chance to see that. It didn't come here.
Right.
But Beat Street was the first major motion picture hip hop film. So when I saw the movie Beat Street, I said, that's what I want to do. So 1984, again, I'm 12 years old. So now we're talking about McMillan Junior High School. We're talking about junior high school, right?
Right.
Okay. So then my little sister is born, and my mother buys this Fisher-Price turntable, which was a piece of shit. Oh, can I curse?
We are
Yeah,
enters of
you're good.
that.
Okay.
You are good.
Okay. So, you know, it's a little turntable, little white turntable. You got the little flip thing, and it's got the volume, and that's it. Right. So this album comes out by UTFO, the leader of the pack. And this was the first album that I was able to convince my mother to buy, and I bought the record. And again, the movie Beat Street. So then Breakin' is out. So 84 was me like trying to figure it out and trying to figure out, okay, this is what I want to do, right? And by the way, I never ever thought about the fact that I wasn't black.
Yeah.
Okay, right? It was just because I went to, you know, I went to McMillan, man. You know, like, this was not a white school, right?
And neither is the Miller Park area.
Right.
Well, and real quick, before you continue, I was going to ask, because I know culturally that area at one point was primarily affluent white individuals. So I'm guessing at that point,
This is
the
well
diversity.
after that. Yeah.
So yeah, more on the Florence side.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So yes, it was more white on the side of the park that I lived on, but it wasn't all white.
Got it.
Right.
Okay.
So it wasn't like it was all black, all white. at that time in the 80s, right? So it was mixed, but the real point of the matter is that even if the elementary school was 90% white, as soon as they started playing this hip hop around there, again, I'm a child, right? So I didn't gravitate to rock and roll. My father liked James Brown and disco. My mother liked Elvis Presley, right? So I'm hearing those kind of things in the house, but there wasn't a lot of cultural things happening in my house when I was a kid. All right. So Beat Street and back to this, and it's like, so 84, going into 85, I convinced my mother and father to get me a turntable. Of course, they don't know why, but they don't really care. They're just like, fine. It's not like we had any money, so we figured it out. So I started trying to figure it out, right?
Did you ask for 2 or 1?
I just asked for 1. I know I needed 2 because I saw the UTFO album cover and Mixmaster Ice. If you ever saw the album cover, he's in a ninja suit. UTFO is the group that made the hit record Roxanne.
Right.
He's sitting in front of 2 turntables. So I was like, okay, that's the look. That's got to be what it is. However, the turntables, I couldn't afford that. Those were Technique 1200s, shiny gray, silver, huge. Man, nah, that didn't happen for years later. I started out on some terrible belt drive turntable. So I got 1, then I was able to get 2. Then I went to Radio Shack and got my first mixer.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
So this is 84, 85.
You just aged out anybody that's under the age of 25 when you said Radio Shack.
I'm 52. I'm 52 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now so I'll close it out here is 85 is when I started to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I'm kind of comfortable. Maybe I need to go, right, and let somebody see me. 86 was when the first time I'd ever went outside and DJ'd either at the park or at the pool or whatever. But to add to that, what was happening, that's what's happening at my house. But what's happening at school is a whole nother presentation. So I go to McMillan Junior High School.
Okay.
And I'm going to say some names here. I'm sure people will remember. So the first person I ever met when I went to McMillan was Terry Bennett. So Terry is a legendary B-boy DJ producer in Omaha. He goes by DJ Blade. So I don't know if he's active. I have no idea what he's doing now, but he was one of the first people that I met when I went to McMillan. He was in the 9th grade. I was in the 7th.
Okay.
So I'm already hanging around with older guys, right? Then there was this kid who lived up the block, like literally a block from me, who just popped out of nowhere. And he was a rapper. He was 15. I'm 12. I'm playing in my front yard, and he walks down the street. And he's carrying a box and he's playing this music. And I'm like, hey. So he introduces himself to me. His name was Bobby. He had an MC name. He was MC Dev. Devastator.
Wow.
So we got to talking and we got cool. So now when I'm not at school, I'm hanging around him. He's older than me. Then come to find out, the guy who lives 2 doors down, this is a block from my house. I lived on 25th. He lived on 24th. The guy who lived 4 houses down was Johnny Rogers' son.
Wow.
So this is who I started hanging out with. His name was Jerome. So it was Jerome and Bobby who I hung out with in the neighborhood. But then when I went up to school, then there was a whole nother DJ Real. You know who DJ Real is? That's I was locker mates with Real.
That's crazy.
In the 7th grade, and Maurice King, rest in peace.
Wow.
So these are guys, and so then Real happens to be in this social club called the Romeos. He comes to school with this jacket on it that says the Romeos, and I'm like, hey man, what's that? And he's like, it's what we doing. It's like So then I said, I want to be down, and he was like, cool. So my name was Romeo Ice.
That's so crazy. That's
so
a
again,
dope
this
story.
is junior high school.
Yeah.
This is like we just playing around at this point, right? It's we're just trying to figure it out. I mean, again, so we're talking about 85, 80, going into 86. So then that's really how it started for me. And once 86 came, then that's when me, Terry, and a few other people, they were going down to the Civic Auditorium, where there was parties at the Assembly Hall at the Civic. I only went a couple times, but the hip hop scene was insane because, and shout out to Mario Scratch, Mixmaster, Buster, all these guys were doing their thing. Because everybody, be clear, the hip hop scene in Omaha, Nebraska was insane. And what I'm saying, I'm talking about 84, 5, 6, 7, because like I said, when rap records came about, everybody outside of New York started participating. So in the 80s, everybody was a B-boy, or everybody tried to break dance, or a B-girl. So I'm throwing a lot of names out, like Jamie Robinson. You may know who he is. He does a lot in the community. He does a lot of events right now. Him and Tim Clark. Jamie Robinson.
I know Jamie. Yeah.
Jamie was in a band called the Royal Court Band.
Wow. Okay.
With Barron, rest in peace, Barron. But before the Royal Court Band was an R&B group, they were called the Star Steppers. They were a dance group. Even before that, they were B-boys. Like they used to windmill and pop lock and all of that, right? So there used to be battles at the Civic. All of that stuff used to happen, and it used to go down. And we're talking again 85, 6, 84, 5, 6, right? Because even back then, you had the radio stations, KNOS, KBWH. So like black radio and independently owned radio is not foreign. It's been going on here for a long time, just sporadically.
Right.
Kathy Hughes is from here.
Right.
So, and I bring her up because again, she's a queen in radio in that industry.
Yes.
And she's from here. And so, but when she was here in the early 80s, probably 1980, I believe is the last time she was here, she went to DC to start that radio career.
Right.
Right? Okay. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the beginnings for me is I didn't have a DJ name. My name is Michael Dunham Jr. So when the Beastie Boys came out, everybody just started calling me Mike D. Because my name is Michael Dunham.
Right.
And I didn't like it because I liked the Beastie Boys, but I wasn't them.
Right.
And I wasn't trying to be them. And it wasn't because I was white. It's because my name was Michael. So they was like, yeah, it's Mike D.
It's like,
right?
No, really,
Yeah.
I'm Mike D.
So
crazy.
I didn't like that, but I can get into who named me and how I got Rip and what Rip meant. If you want to, I don't want to
No,
go
you're
too
good.
far.
We always like to ask, because that's always the question with not just DJs, but all the artists, for the most part, have a reason why they got the name they
Right.
got.
Exactly.
Okay, so again, it was Romeo Ice, it was Mike D, and I didn't. Those again, we're just trying to figure it out, right? So in 1986, I'm in my mother's basement I'm practicing, and there was this record that came out by a group called the Skinny Boys, and the song was called "Rip the Cut." They also had a song called Jock Box. Incredible records. But Rip the Cut, it was like, da-da-da-da-da, rip the cut, rip the cut. So I would scratch, rip the cut, just practicing. And I took a spray paint, again, like I told you, I could draw, but I wasn't a graffiti writer, but I liked to tag. So in my mother's basement, my parents' basement, excuse me, I tagged Rip the Cut. So one day I'm practicing, and another OG from Omaha, Disco D, Donald Hannon, came over my house, and he was like, "Man, you should call yourself Rip."
Wow. It's
So
always
I could
simple.
only assume it's because I was ripping the record, and Rip the Cut was on the wall, and I was scratching Rip. He was like, "You should call yourself Rip." So I was like, "Okay, my name is DJ Rip."
Wow.
And it was that was it from like 86 on, 85, 86. That's how I got the name.
Cool. It's like getting crowned. Like,
Oh,
you know
for
it's your
real.
name. Some of us don't get a crowning, or it's like, it's a joke, but it sticks.
Yeah.
But it works. Whatever works, you run with it, and it becomes a piece of your identity, because it's not apart from you. It's not a caricature. It's just
Yeah.
it's what you were doing and what you put it on the wall.
And the funny part about it is that, you know, when you create a name, you always hope nobody else somewhere else does it too. And
Right.
now there's 2 or 3 or 4 of you. I've only seen my name pop up once or twice in history. You know what I'm saying? From people. So I got lucky.
Yeah.
That's what's up. It's a lot they can get to,
Oh, for real.
because I'm like, okay, we're gonna fast forward a little bit. We got to
So hold on, mind you, again,
Yeah.
that's only the 80s, and that's only a section of it.
So at that point, you're
So go
what,
ahead.
12, 13,
he's between
14?
12
So,
to 15.
Yeah,
at
yeah.
that point.
15.
Okay, so, all right, so.
I know, because I can do math. I'm like, I was
Yeah.
born in 87, so I can
Yeah.
subtract.
So 86, I go out and I start DJing, and I can't remember how it happened, but Terry was like, "Yo, we should let this one guy do some like bookings and stuff like that for us." So this guy, I don't even remember his name. He had me DJing, like, and this is like, people think that I romanticize the stories, but this is the truth. Like, I was DJing in Kellam, like in Vietnam projects, like doing pool parties, doing project parties, like
Wow.
everywhere, house part, like just wherever I could DJ at, I was doing it. So then, like I was telling you, Bobby, MC Dev, he had came to me and was like, "Look, man, I just got back from Florida." So he was listening to Two Live Crew
Wow. Okay.
when they first came out, right? Like Throw That Dick and Ghetto Bass, you know what I'm
Right.
saying? And this is, you know, real early. Beatbox, all of that. So then Beastie Boys is out. LL is out now. Run DMC. So we're heavy into it. He says, "Look, man, I want to start a rap group. Just, you know, you DJ, I'll be the rapper." I was like, "Okay, so what we going to call ourselves?" He's like, "I don't know." So we was downstairs in my mother's basement, and I'm practicing again. And Run DMC had a song called Grandmaster J, right? So you know, I'm scratching, and then it gets to this one part where it goes, "Oh, the fellas in a daze, everybody, you know, we got the master of the disco scratch." So I was like, "Oh, the fellas, the fellas." He was like,
There it
our
goes.
name is called the fellas," and that's what we were called, the fellas. Just me and him. Okay, so then now, listen, you know, again, it's 86, so. This guy, I still can't remember his name, who's booking us. He goes, "Hey man, there is a rap convention that's happening downtown. The Go Ahead magazine is throwing it. It's a Say No to Drugs concert, fundraiser. Y'all should get in it." I said, "Let's do it." Not realizing that the number one group in Omaha was in the contest, the Young Rebels. So we get in the contest. So Bobby, MC Dev, my MC, he could freestyle his ass off. But we were not like wholesome, like we were drinking and smoking. You know, we're teenagers.
Right.
And he's 2 years older than me, 3 years older than me. So at this point, I'm now 14 and he's 17.
Okay.
He's in high school and I'm in junior high, right? So we're just wilding. We know it's a Say No to Drugs concert. We know it's a, okay?
Let me smoke a blunt. Like, what?
So we get on stage and we start our routine, right? And he just out the blue just starts getting on the microphone going, "Throw your hands in the air and wave it like you just don't care. Say fuck yeah." And he just going crazy. And I'm like, "Yo, it's a no." And then he's like, "Put it in the air." He just, completely forgot that it was
what the event was.
so they disqualify us.
Oh,
All right.
yeah.
But it doesn't matter because we wouldn't go in.
Yeah.
Right.
Because the Young Rebels performed. And the Young Rebels were the shit.
And they were out of Omaha.
Omaha. This was the
Okay.
Run DMC of Omaha. Let me tell you who was in the Rebels.
Wasn't that so?
Hold on.
Yeah.
Let me tell you who was in the Rebels at that moment. At that moment, it was DJ Real. I'm going to say Mr. Soul, but that wasn't his name.
Okay.
That was back when he was rapping, wasn't it?
That wasn't his name. I won't even go there. So Real was in the Rebels at the time. Soul was in the Rebels at the time. Dancing Bear was in the Rebels. Kid Ice, which was Real's brother Joe.
Okay.
Rest in peace. And Forrest was just coming out of the group. Forrest is Soul's older brother.
Okay.
Forrest is 6'7".
I believe it.
Just
I met his brother. Yeah.
so you know Forrest. All right, so that's the Rebels. All right, so they get on there, they demolish it. This is the first time I ever seen a DJ beatbox and scratch simultaneously.
Wow.
When I saw Real do that, I was like, yeah, he's the best.
Shout out Real.
It's out of here.
That's crazy.
We've lost. Okay, so after the show, remember, Real is my locker partner in school.
Right.
So I know him. So after the contest is over, Bear comes up to me backstage, was like, hey, man, y'all was dope, man. You should give me your number. And I was like, sure, here. Maybe like a month later, he calls me and asks me to be in the group.
Wow.
And it just so happened that a month later, Bobby was like, I'm moving back. We lost. I'm going to move to Florida with my dad. And I was like, all right, fine.
Wow.
Like, so at that
Off the
point,
L? That's crazy.
at that point, it was over for me anyway. I was like,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
look like I'm going to be the solo DJ. They asked me to be in the group. I was like, wow, of course. I mean, it's the Rebels, right? Like
Right.
when I heard about them and I knew that they were the best, right? So when I got in the group, I did not know that they wanted me to rap. Also, I was not a rapper. I was terrible. But that's a part of that story. So I just wanted to get to the fact that my beginnings started like that. And then that led me into being in the Young Rebels, which was the #1 rap group in the city. You could argue all you like. However, they were the Run DMC of Omaha, right? They did everything, I mean, so it's and Houston likes to share this old footage, but the first interview I ever did was with Brenda Council.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I was 15 years old.
Wow.
On TV. I had just got into the Rebels and I was on television. Then we went to the studio to record a record with then his name was Jaboy because he was a R&B funk singer. But his name is really Frank Thompson.
Okay.
And he was on the city council.
It's crazy.
Y'all know that guy?
I don't.
I don't.
His brother is Billy T, who was the last owner
Oh, wow. Okay.
of KBWH
Yeah.
before he turned it off. So that's the 80s for me.
That's crazy. So what studio were y'all recording in at that time?
We recorded in Frank Thompson's garage at his house. Wow. It was Jaboy. Jaboy put out a record called Electric Lady, the Mega Mix. So at that time, the other thing you got to remember is, just picture, song, it's 85, 86, 87, right? So just picture Run DMC, LL Cool J, Salt and Pepper, and then remember, we're in Omaha. This is the one thing that I want to always make sure that we highlight. The real reason why Omaha seems to rise to the top of all kind of cultural conversations is because Omaha is literally in the middle of the country. And because it's in the Midwest, it has influence from the East Coast and the West Coast.
Right.
So we played everything. We don't have a music bias per se, at least coming out of the 80s, right? So at the same time that we were playing, the Run DMCs and the, Inspector Gadget and the Africa Bambaataa, Grandmaster Flashes, around the mid 80s, we were also playing the World Class Wrecking Crew and eventually Too Short and Ice-T and Radio and Joe Cooley and Sir Mix-a-Lot. We were playing all of that and Luke. So in the mid 80s, we were playing everything. So it was just all hip hop to us, which that's kind of the influence. So that was kind of the scene. And then 87 and going into 88 is when drugs and gangs infested the city. And then the movie Colors came out and everything changed.
Wow. That's a big deal. So like you said, E, there's so many questions running through my head. Being a DJ and getting your hands on that music. Again, we were in you were in Omaha, right?
Right.
I was born in 91. So growing up for me, going to Leola's Records and Tapes and Homer's was the spot to get the music. What was the place for you guys at that time? Or was somebody coming here straight up out the trunk? Like,
no.
What was going on?
So for me, it was Leola's, not the Ames location.
Okay. I didn't even know they weren't on Ames before.
Yeah, she was off a lake behind Hilltop.
Okay.
Across the street from the American Legion.
Okay.
Also. Yeah. And don't get me lying, she may have been somewhere before that. But Leola's, Music Express, Peaches and Herb, I believe, and then wherever you could still, if there was a girl that I met, does your mom and dad got any records? I want them. Can I have them?
Yeah.
Can you give them to me?
Just getting hurt. All kind of trouble, boy.
So again, girl like you, she gonna give you the records.
Right.
So just wherever. And I gotta shout out Mario Scratch. His brother used to work at Music Express. I believe that was where he worked at. Brian B was Mario. See, Mario Scratch is the Grandmaster Flash of Omaha. See, it's so much history. See, like, now I'm going to quote my client, Flash, but Flash always says that the foundation of hip-hop is the 70s, and that's a fact. The foundation of Omaha's hip-hop is the 80s, in my opinion, because you had people like Captain Courtney, Ginger D. This is all respectfully. All these people, right, were DJs and in the music business from an Omaha perspective, but they weren't hip hop. But Mario was that guy who was like 81, I want to say, somewhere around there.
Okay.
82. He was the guy that was the one that said, okay, I'm going to be hip hop because of Grandmaster Flash and because of these people. So it all kind of just, it to me, I always felt like Mario was the Grandmaster Flash of Omaha. And he was always that foundation, and it kind of built from him. And then Real was the changing of the guard from an older to the younger.
Okay.
And I came in with Real, right? So I would say, this is just my opinion, is that we're second generation hip hop for Omaha, and Mario is first.
He's like the Scratch to Grandmaster.
Yeah, I'm saying that, well, no, I'm saying more like Mario is Grandmaster Flash, and maybe Real is Grand Wizard Theodore. You see what I'm saying? So it was kind of like, even though Flash taught Theodore, so it's not the same. But what I'm getting at is that, when you start like trying to make examples of people's positions, again, this is just my opinion, but because when I met Real, I didn't even know he was a DJ. And then when I saw him first saw him DJ at the Civic, and he was battling Mario. And he did this Run DMC scratch. It was phenomenal. It was just like a scene from a movie. Then the next time I saw him, we was competing against each other, and my group lost, and he won. And then the next conversation was me joining a group with him, right? So, I just kind of wanted to point out some of those things because there's so many people in the 80s that are important. And I created a list. I'll share it with you guys. It's just too many to name, though. But, again, from the Bro Dogs to Mario Scratch, the Party Boy Freaks, DJ Suicide, Buster. I think he changed his name to K-Mac later, and Black Anthony, which then they called him Burn Anthony, was an incredible b-boy. Slip Rock, Anthony Edwards, incredible b-boy. JVC, like it's just so many people that paved the way and built the foundation of hip hop in Omaha during the time where you would think that Omaha shouldn't even be participating in the culture, but it really was. And the radio sounded like a mega mix. They even made a song called The Mega Mix. Jaboy, which is Frank Thompson, made a song called The Mega Mix. You can find all this stuff online. And Billy T was a part of the radio station. And when you turned on the radio, then it sounded like New York and LA, Right. So it was really an incredible time, for all the elements. I'm just glad that I was able to participate at a moment because they were already doing it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, again, when I went to McMillan, they were already b-boying and breakdancing, and they was going to the Civic, and they was doing b-boy battles, South Side versus the North Side, and it was the Bowman brothers, and it's just so much, right? And I want to share the list with you all. Please. After the interview, so you could see it's hundreds of names of the Taste, the Cold Rockin' Crew. These are female rap groups in the 80s in Omaha. Like, it's so much, you know what I mean? Yeah. So wow. Yeah, it was an incredible time, and that's the 80s. Once we start talking about the 2000s, which you guys might be able to relate to more, when we got into radio, it was a whole nother magic show. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I just want to say, that the 80s, even venues like Spoons, and I mean, I could just go on for days about how incredible that time frame was, right? Yeah. And then and I'll end it here. You guys could go on, but 88, when gangster rap really infiltrated, and drugs and gangs, it changed the city. I mean, but even then we had the Mad Dads, and we had so many programs and things that were, trying to keep the community in line, right? But you ever ask yourself why Omaha popped up in the movie Belly? It's because of the drugs that came here. They were able to make so much money because it wasn't a thing here. It was unheard of, right? There was gangs, but not like Crips and Bloods, right? So those things, but even when all of that was happening, it was still an amazing time to be in Omaha when it came to hip hop.
Gotcha.
Beautiful.
I have an idea. You know me, I be like, that's such a dope idea. I have your June issue.
My June issue?
I have your June issue.
Oh.
What he just said. That's her magazine, by the way.
Yes.
This one right here?
Yes. It just launched.
First edition.
Can I move this? And
absolutely. Yes. That yeah, like he said, that's the first edition. We just dropped another issue this month, and we're working on next month's. So this is to highlight music and entertainment in the city.
Listen.
And I just got a grand.
You should publish the list in here so everyone can get a chance to read it.
Yeah.
Okay. And really understand, again, this thing goes in eras, and I've been all over the world, and I know we haven't even gotten into my actual career.
Yeah.
But I've been everywhere, and people always stop me. Like, real quick story is, I managed Eric Sermon.
Oh, wow.
And I went on the road with EPMD, got really close to DJ Scratch. And yes, I could tell you how that happened, but I was on the road with him. I was at a show in Rochester, New York, and I'm standing on the side. Now picture this in your mind. I'm standing on the side of the stage. I'm standing next to Eric Sermon, DJ Scratch, and Parrish. This is EPMD. And we're looking up at Slick Rick and Dougie Fresh perform Lottie Dottie.
Wow.
And I'm just like, damn, man.
What a time.
This is amazing. Eric goes like this. Yo. I said, yes. He said, how'd you get here? I said, I got on a plane with you. What do you mean, how'd I get here? He's like, no.
You came from Omaha.
How did you get here?
Yeah, right.
And I looked at him and I was like, what are you saying? He was like, where you from again? Oklahoma?
And they love to do that.
So I said, no, I'm from Omaha. And he said, okay, how'd you get here? And I was like, my love of hip hop, period. Said I'm a DJ.
Right.
Turntables will always play. And when I got in the radio, it took me to another stratosphere. However, when I got to the stratosphere, I was smart enough to maintain relationships, keep my contacts, and actually never lie to people. Because as a DJ, you're really a service provider.
Yep.
Right.
Because if a DJ tells you that the music ain't the most important thing, they're lying. Or they don't really understand what they're really doing.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying the skills don't matter. They do. But I'm saying if you can't keep the party rocking, you're not going to be DJing for anybody.
Right.
Right? The music that you play, how you play it is the most important thing. So being a DJ is being a service provider. So when you realize that everything in life is a relationship, it doesn't matter if it's a good one, bad one, long one, short one.
It is.
It's a relationship. Like I'm talking to you, giving you information, you're absorbing and listening. So I'm giving you something, and in return, you're going to do something else.
Right.
So there's a relationship going on here. That's every day, right? So when I realized that, I was like, that's how I got here. And then I reminded him why he wanted me to manage him to begin with. He was like, oh, yeah. And it was simply because I was doing something that nobody else was doing. I was really caring about the culture. And I could explain that a little bit more in depth a little later, because that's a part of later on. But you should publish the list so then everybody can get a chance to see how vast the hip hop scene was in Omaha.
That's very important.
I know it seems now again.
I said we have a June issue,
so I'm not plugged in to the current scene.
Yeah.
Because again, I got a lot going on. But with Hip Hop Labs, and we'll talk about that later, I kind of am. But regardless, the 80s were incredible for hip hop in Omaha, and it came back around in the 2000s to me because of radio. But yeah.
Let's talk about that. I was going to ask about, because it's funny you naming some of the neighborhoods, and me, I'm not a native of Omaha.
Okay.
But everybody swear to God they saw me play at North. Because I've been around way too much. They just be like, you, I remember you. No, you don't. But I've been around. It's funny. People, my homie said, bro, you done live like in every hood. Because I purposely stay on the north side when I've been here.
Okay.
But how, I do want to ask real quick, when that shift came, because I hang around some of the people that were here for when, especially the West Coast came and set up shop.
Yes.
And then even the stories about how they kicked them out and beat them up. But
yeah.
How did it change? Because you were talking about Miller Park, but you were talking about DJing in Vietnam projects at Hilltop. You over here, like did it change for you as a DJ knowing you coming from a particular area too?
Yeah. So you're asking me, how did it change? So
especially for you as a DJ, as somebody just in the culture trying to make it happen. How did that shift happen?
So going to McMillan, again, before there was Crips and Bloods, there were other gangs. Okay. So I knew some of the other gang members. I've never been in a gang, right? But again, Omaha is not big, right? So when I was going to McMillan, some of the guys who I was cool with there, the non-music people, right? Athletes or whatever they were, they got into gangs, and I was cool with them, right? So before I actually got in the Rebels, I was DJing some of those, like I said, pool parties at Kellum and, parties in Hilltop and, some of the other projects, even Spencer. And then listen, messing with girls that lived in the projects, right? And having friends that were gang members and then became Crips and Bloods.
Right, okay.
And as soon as it got to, for me, as soon as it got to the level of Crips and Bloods, I was literally told by those gang members, you cannot hang around us anymore. Right? So it was like, yeah, you're not a gang member. Go DJ.
Wow.
And it was the best advice I could have ever gotten.
Right. They looked out. That's really looking
because they were right. Like you're a DJ. You're not this. Even though you hang around us, you fit, you're from this, like, I'm not an oddball trying to be down.
Right.
But they were like, yeah, you're a DJ though. So go do that. And unfortunately a lot of them died and went to jail, a lot of them. And I don't want to mention any of their names, but I was cool with them, right? Like they were childhood allies or friends or whatever, at some point in time, really schoolmates, right? But it did change because now you got to watch what you wear. You got to watch what you play. Like, there was a time when we be, listen, NWA came out and changed it because, again, remember, we're playing hip hop. So we're playing, and it's all hip hop. However, prior to street or gangster rap, as they titled it, it was more reality rap or just rap, right? Hip hop is the culture. Rap is what you do.
Right.
Rap is one element of the culture. Hip hop is the culture, right? Okay, so if we're playing LL Cool J, I'm Bad, we're playing Run DMC, Peter Piper, My Adidas, then we drop Boys in the Hood by Eazy or Dope Man.
Not over off Deuce 4 and not over in Miller Park. Well, before it was called Not Over There.
But I'm telling you, I play it and it's over. Like now, it's fights, it's drama,
right,
shooting, like
completely different environment setting.
So because again, the music changed, and it changed for us, and then the drugs came in. And then the West, they brought the Crips and they brought the Bloods and because there was also Vice Lords and GDs, which is Chicago gangs. So that was a different presentation, right? But all that was going on. There was pimps. There was this is the streets. This is Omaha, and that's the point. People don't even. They think I'm lying when I say these things. Like, no way.
It's real. Unfortunately, real ties.
And the truth of the matter is there's some guys in Omaha that need to be played with.
Right? No, seriously, because I got family members in their 70s and 80s, and they pull up anywhere, and it's still mad respect.
So now there's plenty of problems though with Omaha, and plenty of reasons to be disappointed.
Yeah.
Over the course of time. But the truth of the matter is that Omaha influence goes vast. Malcolm X was born here. Kathy Hughes is from here. Gabrielle Union is from here, right? The new gentleman, I can't think of his name. He does a really big podcast right now. He's from here. I can't even think of his name. Jesus.
Podcast from here? That's really
like he does. Godfrey? What's his name?
Godfrey.
Am I saying it wrong?
The dark
There is a Godfrey.
There is a Godfrey.
He's from here.
I think he's from Omaha.
Never know.
I don't know that.
I could be wrong.
We're gonna fact check that.
Please do.
Screwface John looked like him, but
and I might be saying the wrong name, but fact check it. But so what I'm getting at though is that that's cultural. That's just not it's not just that Terrence Crawford
Right.
is the best in boxing and he's from here. Houston Alexander dominated the UFC and he's from here. It's not just that. It's literally cultural influence from film to music.
Right.
And then we could talk about Terry Lewis being from here.
Yeah. True.
Did you know that Jimmy Jam and
Yes.
Terry Lewis, hold on, produced Ice-T's first record? Terry Lewis is from here. So
know that.
Yeah. You did it?
No, I did not
Yeah.
know that.
you didn't know he was from here? So now again, I'm just naming a few. There's more.
Right.
Preston Love. You know, I can keep going of the influence that comes out of here, but the reason why it's truncated or muted is because it's such a small city and it's placed in a white state.
Right.
So it just doesn't seem logical. So when I travel, they're like, yeah, is there even black people there? I'm like, there's black people everywhere.
Right.
And why do you even make it seem as if I live on Mars?
No facts. Live
Right?
Nation
or,
feels the same way.
I'm sorry, I'm from Mars because I haven't lived here the whole time. But
Right.
But so anyways, yeah. So you know, you should please. I'm
let's
gonna give you the
let's-
list. You
let's get
publish
that
the
together.
list.
We're gonna do more than publish the list.
Because
It's gonna
listen,
be an issue for itself.
because listen, and there's a million people that need to be interviewed. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's not just me, because again, you know, the reason why I feel like sometimes people look at me as like this walking library or this, you know, all this wealth of knowledge. It's just simply because I've paid attention.
Right.
And I cared.
Right.
I just remember a lot, right? And as I traveled the world and worked with all these people, I started, and I got into film, I started to have to learn their history. And because I'm a DJ, I believe all DJs should actually respect their craft and study the music that they play,
Right.
not just play music. Study the music you play, because the more you know, the better you play.
Right.
The more you know, the better you are. So, because I'm a DJ, I look at everything I do in life like a record coming out of a record crate. If you got a record crate and there's 50 records, 100 records, you got 50 or 100 different things going on that you pick out and you learn from, and you look at the liner notes, you learn all this stuff. Every record has a story and 100 stories behind it.
Right.
Right? So that's how I've always looked at it. So again, please do what you do, because
Yeah.
there's so many people, and now we're again in 2025, and there's people now that don't even know about nothing that I just like
yeah,
it never even happened.
Yeah. No, they have no clue.
And it did.
No, that's amazing. We're definitely gonna make that happen, and we got a partnership right now with the Omaha Star, so we're gonna make sure that gets spread across there as well.
Yeah. Man, this is a lot of places. We gonna fast forward. We gonna fast forward to those 2000s, because we know y'all was just getting it cracking in the 90s.
Yeah.
But I think fast forwarding to the 2000s and talking about the radio,
Okay.
and why that's so integral now, because you and the people you were with were essentially, I want to say, pioneers and like almost rediscoverers. Like you said, black radio has been has a history in Omaha.
Right.
But what did you all do and bring that kind of shifted things and pushed it forward?
So, so as far as radio goes in the 2000s, it was Busy Bee that called me, because after the 80s, going into the 90s, I moved to New York, and we were trying to get a record deal. And I lived with Raheem from Grandmaster Flash and Fierce 5. We lived in his basement. And he was working on the Juice soundtrack. He did a song on the Juice soundtrack called Does Your Man Know About Me? Go listen to the song. We were there. Rest in peace, my rapper that was in the Rebels was Bear. And Bear was supposed to rhyme on that song, and he was too hard for the song. So we recorded at Power Play Studios in Queens, in New York, and they took him off the record. And so it didn't make the song that made the album, that made the movie.
Yeah.
But we got a chance to experience that. So, when we came back from New York, and it was a few trips and, and all of that. And the group kind of dismantled in the mid 90s, and Soul went into DJing in clubs, and I started working on a solo album, and I started DJing for Houston because Houston created a b-boy crew called the Alliance All-Star B-Boys. And so I put out an album called Rock the B-Boy Language, and the 12-inch was 20,000 Beats and Rhymes and the Rebel Notebook. I pressed the vinyl and everything. So this was in 96 and 97. Put out the 12-inch, put out the vinyl, the album, and then started touring around the Midwest. So I was DJing parties, and then we would go on tour. We would go open up for Run DMC. We would open up for Ice-T. We'd go to Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Kansas, everywhere. Iowa. We toured the whole, anywhere we could drive to, we toured, right? It was me and the B-Boys, and they would break dance, and I would DJ for them, and then I would rhyme afterwards and perform 2 songs, right? So that was the late like 97, 98. So then that started slowing down. And it was like, okay, Busy Bee was one of the, at that time, because remember, we ran the 80s. By the way, the Rebels was the Run DMC, right? But I forgot to tell you that there was 3 DJs in the Rebels. It was me, Real, and Soul.
Okay.
Because we were a rap group, we were DJs, we were turntablists. So we were performance DJs. We DJ'd in a rap group. But we also threw our own parties. So we was always throwing parties, DJing in clubs, not nightclubs. We weren't old enough.
Right.
Just like, we would rent out places and throw events like the Y and the Boys and Girls Club. And like we performed in, like, listen, the Rebels performed on the roof of Time Out Chicken. On the roof. That's crazy. Okay, I'm not making it up. This isn't a romanticized story. Wow. So what I'm trying to get to the point, to the radio. So what I'm getting at is when the Rebels broke up, Soul got an opportunity to start working in nightclubs.
Okay.
Right? And I went this way, started working on an album, started DJing for the B-Boys. So now I'm still in full-blown hip-hop mode, okay? So now it's the 90s, and Houston is, he's an insane B-Boy.
Yeah.
And an insane graffiti writer.
Right.
So, we're all around the Midwest, open it up for everybody again. So then that kind of starts slowing down. So then now we're in the late 90s. So now DJs like Busy and Bishop and Freeze are emerging. They wasn't in the 80s. We were the 80s. And so then they start emerging in the 90s. Okay? So then now Busy's one of the top DJs. He's doing the college scene, and, he's doing everything. Gonzo was a college promoter. He used to do events called Gonzo Presents, and Busy was doing his thing.
Right.
So I had reached out to Busy about working on doing some things, and so here's where the radio starts. So Busy and I are working together, and Busy gets an opportunity through Gonzo to submit a 15-minute mix to 94.1. Only 15 minutes, not go DJ to rush hour in the traffic jam. 15 minutes. So Busy did it.
Yeah.
So he did that for a little while, and then that grew. Again, you could get the story from Busy directly, but then it grew to him doing an hour, right?
Right.
So Monday through Friday, 5 to 6 o'clock is Busy Bee on 94.1.
No, I remember being a kid in the car.
Okay. So
hearing that. That's crazy.
So because me and Busy had worked together at that time, he called me and was like, "Hey man, you want to get in the radio?" And I was like, I mean, of course, why wouldn't I, right? Because again, everything that I just told you this has all been Omaha based, 80s and 90s. I moved to New York in 91, but was only there for a short time and came back. This is all Omaha. So late 90s, Busy's like, "You want to get in the radio?" I was like, "Okay, sure." He was like, however, there's no DJ slots. Well, I knew that because he was barely on there.
Right.
So he was like, but there's a sales position. So I was like, yo, man, I ain't never I've never sold radio before, right? So I said, forget it. Let's do it. So I start selling radio advertisement for Channel 94.1.
Wow.
Mind you, they were a jazz station before they flipped to a rhythmic and started playing rap music. And Busy got in there. So then I started working for them. So now it's Busy in the sales department, me in the sales department, and him part-time DJing on the air. So they made him make a decision, and they said, you either DJ on the air or you go sell. Pick. And he made the right choice. And he said, I'm going to DJ on the air. So now Busy's full-time DJing for 94.1. I'm in the sales department. However, sometimes Busy would want to travel or something. And, he was like, will you fill in for me when I'm gone? So I said, sure. So I would fill in for Busy on the radio at 94.1 when he was gone. We even battled one time on the radio. It was funny. But
who won?
Well, I'm not. Let me just say this: I'm not a radio DJ per se. Remember, I came from a rap group in the '80s.
Right.
I'm a scratcher, right? Like, so it wasn't really who won. It was just interesting. You just had to hear the songs. I went in. He stayed safe because he's the radio guy. I got yelled at because I played all the wrong stuff. He didn't. So maybe he won because I did my thing, but like again, it was really more in fun. It wasn't like we were gonna go. It was just okay, you play record, I play record. It was just more fun.
Yeah.
All right, so but me and Busy are two different kind of DJs.
Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is that Busy then got an opportunity. He got a phone call, and this is when the competition, which was Sweet 98.
Oh my God, this is like nostalgic as heck.
They had a terrible throwaway signal transmitter. It was just terrible. It was 97.3. And it was broadcasted from Blair.
Wow.
But they came up with this idea, like, you know what? 94.1 is giving us heartburn, and you're over there. What do you think? And I believe that there's a gentleman named Vershawn Jackson.
That's my boyfriend's uncle.
Wow.
That played for Lincoln and owns Jackson Takeout.
So ask Vershawn what I'm talking about.
That's crazy.
So I think Vershawn was the one that originally told that company that Busy would be a good person to call Busy B. So they decided to put this, wait a second, we got this signal that we want to throw. We don't care about it. However, 94.1 is kicking Sweet 98's ass in ratings. How do we deal with that? Well, we put on something that competes. Now, I told you before, urban radio and black community radio is not foreign to Omaha. Hot 107.7 and 97.3, we didn't create. We just recreated what was already happening, but from more of a youthful standpoint, right? So shout out to KNOS and KBWH and all the radio stations that were, in Omaha before that, because that was the foundation, right? So okay. So they call Busy, and Busy's like, hey, Rip, listen, man, I got a phone call, and they're asking me to come over and be the program director of this new radio station that they want to launch. What do you think I should do? I was like, are you crazy?
And this is over at Sweet 98.
It's the company. Yeah. It was Wait Radio.
Okay.
And they owned Sweet 98 and 6 other radio stations.
Yeah.
And we worked for Journal Broadcast Group, which owned 94.1.
Right.
And Journal Broadcast Group changed their name to Scripps. Okay. All right. So I was like, are you crazy? You know, DJs don't become program directors like that. You better take that job. Granted, we're on the #1 radio station. Like, what you talking about? And I was like, man, you got to go, man. And he did it. It was the best thing that ever happened to him. because now he's a program director. He's the boss. He can now make an impact and make a change in his community. So then the point is that now we can bring back what the other radio stations did, what they lacked, what they couldn't do, what they couldn't accomplish.
Right.
Because this was a commercial for-profit radio station. Those were not. Right? So, which is why Hot 107.7 and 97.3 doesn't really get credit for being a black radio station because it wasn't black owned.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was black programmed though.
Yeah.
Black ran. It just was not owned. Right?
Right.
So Hot 107.7, I'm sorry, it's 97.3. And then they go, it's broadcasting from Blair. It's a black radio station. There's no black people in Blair. So how do we get to North Omaha? The engineers figured out a way to take a transmitter, and a transmitter is something that rebroadcasts a signal. So they rebroadcasted Blair's signal and pointed it to North Omaha. Hence why it was Hot 107.7 and 97.3.
Thank
We
you.
were on
Wow.
dual signals.
Thank you for the clarity on that, because as a kid, I was always like, "What? Why?"
But why they put Hot 107.7 first is because that was the transmitter that was pointed to
Wow.
So
Omaha,
it was
which
target market signal.
which again, the signal was terrible.
Yeah.
However, we changed the whole city. And again, the impact was phenomenal because what we did in the 2000s was what was happening in the 80s, just with the new music
Yeah.
and more established DJs programming younger minded people. And at the time, there was plenty of there was black owned retail stores, and the community had a lot going on. There was a lot of concerts. There was clubs. You had the Click. You had Cartier's. You had Grooves. You had Planet Soul. I can name 4, 5, 6 of them, not including Hanks and the Spalding and all the other
Cleopatra's,
all the other
Yeah.
neighborhood bars.
Yeah.
But all that was going on at the same time. And then what we decided to do was like, okay, let's do an event for the community. Let's bring back the Stone Soul Picnic, right? So
mad I wasn't here for that.
now the Stone Soul Picnic. And then Busy went and got Papa Gator. Rest in peace. Legend in radio in Omaha.
I missed out on his collection,
The books.
all his record, everything.
Yeah, incredible, legendary. So again, Hot 107.7 and 97.3, the magic was the fact that in our head, we were just reminiscing about the 80s, but applying it to the 2000s with the new music. And mind you, this is when crunk took over.
Yes.
This is when, you know what I mean? This is when 50 Cent and I mean, Eminem didn't get a lot of play, but this is when 50 Cent and Ludacris and T.I. and Atlanta, this is when the South took over.
Oh, this is crazy.
So
This is nuts.
So again, even the West Coast with the hyphy and all of that stuff, it was amazing. So now we get to this. So now this is when all of a sudden the world wants to pay attention to, or not, let me not say the world, the record labels, New York and LA want to pay attention to Omaha.
Right.
Because the radio station comes on, and in radio, if you're able to be a monitored radio station, you can prove what you play. And if you could prove what you play by being monitored, record labels can pull up in a database your station, hit your button, boop, and now watch what you're playing.
Right.
And now you're on the radar. So because you're on the radar, now they got to do business with you. So now the phone is ringing. Now everybody wants to come to Omaha and meet Busy, and talk to Rip, or meet Soul, or talk to whoever who is on the station, right?
When you said the phone is ringing, it reminded me. I think it was 94.1 when they do the phone is ringing. Oh my God! When people would call in, that's crazy.
Right. So,
I'm like, is this how Prince got into the club?
You talking about it playing the soul?
Yes.
Okay, so
People act like that didn't happen. They're like, no, Prince
that
was
happened.
in the club.
That happened. I was DJing at Grooves across the street when it happened. I saw him walking the side of the building. So now those are moments in time in Omaha that happens because of outlets,
Right. Right.
access, right? So if you got a big club and you got somebody with a little bit of money and you got somebody who knows somebody, all of a sudden you now got people coming to your club that ain't from there, right? It's just a fact. You got to have relationships, you got to have money, and you got to have an outlet, period. Every city has it. This is why I've had so many conversations about radio. The radio is not just the voice of the community. To me, it's the heartbeat of the community. And when you take that out, everything then has to, live on its own.
Right.
When the radio station is like, it's like a center point, right? Where people can go to, hear the news, listen to the music, get the information, be entertained, advertise, make money, do business, all of that stuff all at the same time. And if it's for the community, by the community, created by the community, then it's a win for the community, right? So now, long story short, on the radio, now all of a sudden everybody outside of Omaha wants to talk to us, and now it's let's travel, and we're starting to figure these things out. So now we're on the map, and we're making the needle move, and now we're in the 2000s.
So at what point, because I don't even remember the transition, did it go from Hot 107.7, 97.3 to then Power 106.9?
So like I had mentioned before, Hot 107.7 and 97.3 was really put in place to knock 94.1 off of the axis.
Right.
Because Sweet 98 is a 100,000 watt radio station. That's the biggest that you can get. So it's a monster. So 94.1 is a 25,000 watt, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not as powerful. However, it plays the cooler music.
Sorry, there is nothing to repeat.
I don't know how Siri picked that up.
Like you said, ain't nothing to repeat. Say what you say.
So if it's playing the cooler music, it's going to get more attention, and it's going to drive more listenership, right?
Right.
So which is why these stations always want to play hip hop, because it is the biggest genre of music to date. So Hot 107.7, 97.3 was just supposed to be turned on to, align the business a little better.
Right.
Sweet 98 needed some leverage over the competitor.
Right.
But the idea of turning on a black radio station to super serve the black community was a brilliant idea. However, it was really, again, to take out 94.1. But what we did, I don't think they ever saw it coming. Now, I know Vershawn is a smart guy, which is why he mentioned Busy's name at that time. But I don't think the owner saw it coming. I don't think that they expected to get Busy and me and Soul and Brasco, and I can keep going. They had no idea it was going to happen.
Right.
And guess what? We didn't know what we were doing. We just did what we did by instinct. I do sales a little bit. I was a DJ. Busy's a DJ. He knows sales a little bit. So that means that we know the music and we understand the business. So now we'll work out the rest. And that's what happened.
Wow.
Call up all your homies, and all your homies happen to be all the top DJs in the city.
Yeah.
Oh, so we got this locked in a smash. 94.1 couldn't touch us. They weren't for the community. They weren't from the community. Everything about Hot 107.7 and 97.3 was North Omaha.
That's crazy.
Period.
I could not get signal at Quiet Storm at night in the basement.
So
It makes sense now.
So long story short, We started making money.
Yeah.
Is the point,
Yeah.
right? Like the station, I had a budget. I had monthly budgets. I had quarterly budgets. I had annual budgets. We started meeting goals, exceeding goals. Ratings were doing well. Like Soul had double-digit numbers at night. It's unheard of. He was killing them on that terrible signal. We had Russ Parr in the morning, killing it.
Yep.
Right? All the mix show DJ. I mean, come on. We had everything that you possibly could have. It was like on fire. It was like New York in a box plopped in Omaha. So, not to mention, the truth of the matter is, my relationships were insane in the industry because of the radio station as my leverage and all the legends that I told you in the 80s and 90s that I met and when we did all that stuff. So the power of what we had was unmatched. Wow. So 2 to 3 years in, they're like, look, I think the little engine that could is time for an upgrade. Now, by the way, Power 1069 was a rock and roll, like a retro. It was called The City.
Okay.
It was a retro white radio station.
Yeah.
Owned by the same company.
Right.
They just flipped the format. They was like, yeah, we're going to give it to Power. I'm sorry. We're going to give it to Hot 1077. But then by doing that, they wanted to change the logo and change the name. Because now it's not the little engine that could, the dual signal, the raggedy signal, and the community. It's not going to be that no more. Now it's going to be Power 1069, the hottest hip-hop and R&B radio station in the city. So they upgraded it and put it on a stronger signal. Busy was still programming. They changed the logo. We got the new artwork, all that stuff. Boom, boom, boom. Now, that was also the beginning of the end. Now, it took a long time, right? So the station came on in 03, 04, if I'm not mistaken. I moved in 09 to D.C. Shortly after I moved, Busy left. He left the radio station. And then shortly after that, he moved. And then it was taken over by Hot Boy, and Hot Boy became a program director, and then I moved back in 2015, 16, and Hot Boy was the program director, and I went back to the station and then they brought in another gentleman from Lincoln to program it. His name was Caleb, and on and on and on. And I left the station in 2017, and the truth of the matter is that we were just delaying the inevitable when that radio station converted to Power. Because the real truth of the matter is that now that it became Power 1069 and it was on the bigger signal, now it wasn't just for the black community anymore.
Right, facts.
The truth is that now Midtown can hear it, and West Omaha can hear it, and South Omaha can hear it. So now, okay, hey, Busy, I think we need to change the programming a little bit. This isn't coming from me. This is coming from the owners. Again, I told you, it's not black owned.
Right.
So now they're changing it up a little bit. They're like, yeah, we're out west now. So we can't just talk to 30th and Ames.
Right.
We got to talk to 144th and Center.
And that's why I asked too, because the content, the sound converted essentially back to 94.1.
So
With a
that's
sprinkle
exactly what happened is
sprinkle of
that
black.
the format,
A small little pepper dish.
the format starts getting broader because the audience now gets broader.
Right.
Right? So now it's not the black radio station anymore. It's the radio station for the people, for the community, but not the black community, the whole community.
Right.
Okay, so then now, all right, so now it's going away from what we all put into it and believed in. So I left. I was like, I don't, this isn't what we started. This is completely different. This is now that rhythmic, as they say in the business, or churban, they might say. It's now an urban format that's actually targeting white people.
Right.
Now, again, it's fine, but that's not what we started. So, respectfully, I had to walk away from it completely. And then now when you listen to it now, it is exactly what it is. When you listen to it, yeah, it plays all black music. But that's not what it is though.
Right.
It's talking to West Omaha. It's talking to a wider audience. And now again, we started that thing in 03, 04. We're now 20 years later. So now if you look at the landscape of the music and the target, pop is now hip hop. Hip hop was not pop.
Right.
But now it is. So now when you look at the Grammys and you look at everything, it fits right in line with Power, because now that's what it looks like, but that's not what we created.
Right.
So that's my opinion on how, the story became. And I'm sure Busy would tell you a little different, but the truth of the matter is that what it is today. And my daughter, she turns on the radio and, goes, "Daddy, you started this station." I'm like, "Yeah, I helped started it, but that's not what we started."
Yeah. And for me, living through it, like I lived through the transition. I heard it, and I heard it gradually change, and then just kind of, in terms of interest, dissipate on my part.
Yeah.
And a lot of my audience part.
Yeah. So you can understand when you listen to it, it's like, yeah, they're playing hip hop. I mean, it's really rap music is how I look at it. Hip hop is the culture, like I told you, and what they're playing on the radio now, that's rap music.
Right.
But it's just no soul there. You know what I'm saying? I ain't talking about soul. I'm talking about soul. Like there's no soul there. And to me, that's what we created with Hot 107.7 and 97.3 is a soulful radio station that spoke to the community and was the community. And we just tried to relive the 80s a lot too.
Yeah.
With bringing a lot of that back. So things have changed, but that's not what it is now.
I'm like, and we're back. I think we had to get a little more time on the camera. But we got into the beginnings, the origins, got into the radio, the influence, the transition out of that. And from there, kind of, I guess, in a snapshot, because we can't get to it all, but in a snapshot, where did your career start to go? Because you've already been talking about managing and getting on certain stages, and like not certain stages, but being around the people, being in the business.
Right.
Like,
so
what happened after you left, especially fully left the radio station, and where has that gotten you to now as you've kind of transitioned back towards Omaha and doing some work here?
So while I was at the radio station, again, like I was saying, we're in the mid 2000s. We started traveling, or I started traveling, you know what I mean? And I started moving around because, now, I meet my wife and she's from North Carolina. So that was in 2000-ish. And then I start traveling back with her. So while I'm going to the Carolinas, I'm starting to see different pockets of music like go-go and house, right? And now again, I'm aware of go-go and I'm aware of house. I'm a DJ, and go-go was infiltrated, and house was, a part of hip hop in the 80s, right? But I'm talking about like real go-go and real house and real reggae and dance hall, right? So you start to I start to travel, and I start to see all these different pockets, and I start studying and bringing records back. And then because of the radio station, I was approached many times to be a part of many things nationally, but one of the most important ones is that there's a DJ coalition called the Core DJs. It's the biggest DJ coalition in the music business. And I was asked to join that coalition. It's a national coalition, and it was hundreds of DJs, about 300-400 of them from all around the country. And the Core DJs used to do music conferences twice a year. So I was invited to go to these things. So I would go to a couple, and then also simultaneously, there was a national promotional company called RPM. They used to do these big, huge DJ conferences out of the country called the Mix Show Power Summit. There was other conferences like How I Can Be Down and Jack the Rapper. You may have heard of Jack the Rapper through films. That was in Atlanta. But so all of these things are going on that we're from Omaha. We don't have any access to and don't know.
Right.
The radio station opened all these things up. We went to the Source Awards. I met, I was with Benzino and Kool Herc, and we just did all these things because of the radio.
Right.
So I go to the Mix Show Power Summits in the Dominican Republic. We're in Puerto Rico, the Bahamas, and then I'm asked to join this DJ organization called the Core DJs. So now we're doing these national, twice a year. It'll be a music conference ran by DJs in Houston, then in Dallas, then in Texas. Then in Chicago, then in California, then Atlanta. Then Tennessee.
Right.
So now I'm going to all these different states, bringing back music, meeting record label reps, meeting executives, meeting artists, building relationships. And this is all happening because of the radio.
Right.
So this is happening from 2000 to literally the late 2000s because I moved to D.C. and I went to work for Kathy Hughes's company,
Wow.
KISS, right? So I went because in Omaha's market number 76, maybe 78 right now. DC's market number 8. So it's a top 10 radio market.
Right.
So it's going down. Like Russ Parr was the morning show in Omaha. When I went to DC, Russ Parr was downstairs broadcasting from the basement of the building I was in.
Wow.
So it's going down, right? So, but what I'm getting at is that in the interim of that, as I'm going through all these places, I start meeting Bone Crusher, the Young Bloods, Sean Paul.
Man, that was an era.
So what I'm getting at, remember I told you this is the 2000s. This one across the South took over. So now I'm going to Atlanta and I'm with everybody. I'm in the studio with Polo the Don and Rich Boy, Usher. I'm meeting everybody. So then now they're realizing, okay, you're in a DJ coalition. You can help me move my music. Oh, and you're on the radio in Omaha. Okay. So now it's all starting to connect. But then J-Bo from the Young Bloods asked me to do his mixtape. The Young Bloods that just broke up.
Yeah.
So I did his mixtape. Then the next phone call I get is Young Noble from the Outlaws, which is Tupac's group. So I do 2 mixtapes for the Outlaws, and it ends up making like mixtape of the year in one of the Source magazines or something. This is Tupac's group. This is after Pac is gone, though. And so I'm doing all of this. So then J-Bo says, hey, man, I want you to manage me. And I'm like, why? He's like, well, because you know how to do business, and you did really good on promoting the mixtape, and you talked to my manager, my ex-manager really well. Will you manage me? And I'm like, sure. This is J-Bo from the Young Bloods. So I start managing J-Bo. And then I just start working with the Outlaws. And now all this is happening while I live in Omaha.
Right.
Which is insane because I'm never here. I go to work, and then on the weekends I'll DJ and then fly to Atlanta and then come back and keep doing it twice a month. So, okay. So then the other thing I told you about being a DJ is we're a service provider. So when I'm in the core, we're doing these conferences, we're breaking records, and we're helping new artists. We're also email blasting and providing people with music.
Right.
So people are coming to me like, hey man, can you get my record here? Can you do da? Not play it on the radio, but get it to the masses so they can figure out what to do with it.
Right.
Most artists have no idea how to even get their music to DJs. So I started doing that and email blasting and all that stuff. So then I started doing it for the legends because I started to realize that, okay, so wait, let me get this straight. So the Young Bloods are popping. However, Yo-Yo has a new record and no one will play it. Eric Sermon has a new record and no one will play it because we playing Lil Jon.
Right.
So I started to realize that the legends had no outlet anymore.
Right.
So I started taking the legends records, new, dope, and servicing them with the new.
Packaging. Yep.
Right? So then one day Eric Sermon calls me. I don't know how he got my number. He was like, hey, man, who are you? And I was like, you called me. He was like, nah, I'm asking you, like, why you keep emailing out all our music? And I was like, because I love it. He was like, man, will you manage me? I was like, hell yeah, you're Eric Sermon. Are you crazy?
Right.
So I started working with him, and then I went on the road with EPMD and all of that. Wow. So then, so again, this is all happening, and then I tell my wife, I'm like, listen, we got to move. Like, I can't.
Yeah.
This is way too much. Like, again, Omaha, we're at Powers 106.9 moment now.
Okay.
And I'm like, look, it's like I can't do any more here. So we don't move to Atlanta, but we move to DC. So then, instead of me quitting radio and just doing me, I went to work for Radio 1. So then when I moved to DC in 2015, I worked for Radio 1 for years. So then now I'm working for a commercial, huge black radio group owned by a woman.
Right.
And her son was actually running the radio side, and she ran the TV side.
TV1.
TV1. Mm-hmm. So now it's like I'm no longer a big fish in a small pond.
But still have your roots of Omaha.
I'm now in the ocean.
Yeah.
Fighting, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. So how do I maneuver around this? By the way, I'm not on the radio. I'm the salesperson. So now I'm at Radio 1, the DJ, selling radio, trying to convince the DJs to respect me. And then one day it all changed. One day, the vice president of Atlantic Records came to the radio station, and I was walking by the music meeting, and he yelled my name out. Rip,
crazy.
What are you doing? And I was like, what do you mean? He said, why you got on the tie? I was like, because I do sales here. And he was like, you're a DJ. And he looks at all the top DJs in DC and goes, do y'all know who this is? He runs the core. And I was like, I don't run the core. That's not my organization. Right. But I do run the core, but it's not mine. Right? Like, I help run the core. And then from that day forward, all the DJs was like, yeah, that's Rip. So then I just started bringing legends to the radio station. I brought DMC up there. I brought Special Ed. I just started, every time a legend would come to DC, I would take them to the radio station. So then it just all started to morph into, so then, and now we're getting there. We're kind of closing it up. Is then I got a phone call, another call, and it was a gentleman who worked for Diddy. He was the VP of rap promotions for Bad Boy at that time. This is 2012.
Okay.
All right, so I'm 3 years removed from Omaha. I'm in DC, like, we doing it. Mm-hmm. And he was like, yeah. Well, he actually had a young lady who I worked with before at core events call me. He didn't actually call me. And then me and him talked later. But they basically said, we're going to start a DJ award show. So it's going to be the Grammys for the DJ. And it's going to be called the Global Spin Awards. I said, damn, that's dope. The DJs need an award show. They was like, yeah, we want you to help with it. I'm like, what y'all need from me? And she was like, Rip, you know everybody. We need some authenticity. And now I'm looking at the wall like, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. Y'all New Yorkers need me to bring authenticity to the award show? Okay, cool. Let's go. How much you gonna pay me? All right, let's do it. And I started producing the Global Spin Awards, which was the Grammy for the DJ in New York. And that's how I met Grandmaster Flash, who's still a client of mine to this day, is we honored him the first year in 2012. And that's when I started working with him, and that's when I started my brand management company, the Spin Firm, which is my company. Because when I started working with Flash, the first job he gave me was to contact a watch company and strike a deal to create a turntable Grandmaster Flash watch. They were already making the turntable watches. He wanted his own. Yo, Grandmaster Flash is the father of hip hop.
Yeah.
So I did it. I was like, cool, let's make it happen. So that morphed into a 10-year relationship with me. Just, I done traveled the world with him. I done went to the Grammys with him. I done went to the VMAs. I was on the Grammys, picture seat and everything, camera seat, the whole nine, around the pandemic, Grammys and all of that, because of the radio station put me in the positions to be in the room with the real industry,
Right.
and working and trying to make things, happen. You know what I mean? And the Global Spin Awards. So then I ended up working with everybody, and that happened for about 4 years, and then and then from that point, look, I done got calls from film companies. Real Sung Productions is a film company that I'm working with now, and they're doing hip hop documentaries. There's 3 documentaries on Fox Soul right now that I've helped with the company with. One is Sparky D. They already did a Sparky D documentary. That's on Fox Soul and on YouTube. They did an Alien Nest documentary, which is a legendary b-boy. And there's a DJ Yella of NWA. We went to the West Coast and we did a DJ Yella documentary. And there's going to be a JJ Fad documentary and an Alonzo Williams documentary.
Wow.
Alonzo Williams was in Straight Outta Compton.
Right.
He started Dre and all of that.
Right.
I helped with these documentaries. And what I provided for the documentaries is, once again, it's the vision, and it's the relationships that I've kept for 40 years, right? So, and then there's a new beat. Okay, and this is how it all comes full circle. There's a Beat Street documentary coming out. I told you I started
Because of Beast.
in 1984 because of the movie Beat Street.
Right.
Well, this same film company, Real Sung, is doing a Beat Street documentary, and I'm in the film.
Wow.
And I'm in the film because of all the conversations that I've had with these legends, and they know that I know all this knowledge. And then when I told them, listen, I went to DC in November where they had a Beat Street reunion. It was Melly Mel and Scorpio and Ramo. And
Yeah.
if you ever watch this movie, when I'm like, these are gods to us. And I'm talking to them, and they're like, yeah, we didn't know that Beat Street influenced Nebraska. I was like, Beat Street influenced the world. You just don't know nobody from Omaha.
Right.
But now you do. And I'm telling you, we all thought we was New Yorkers in the early 80s before the gangs came.
Right.
Before, all of that.
Wow.
So all of that, and that's probably 70% of my life, honestly. Right? But look, it's so much. So long story short, though, what I learned with Flash and some of these other legends is that they're brands, and they're a moment in time, and culture is timeless. So when you look at Run DMC, you look at that book, you got Slick Rick on the cover, you got Run DMC action figures right here. The reason why that even matters is because Run DMC changed the world. So what I started realizing when I was working with Flash is he changed the world. So let's go after the watches and the action figures. And we did. I helped make a Grandmaster Flash action figure. There's an Eric B. and Rakim action figure set out, a KRS-One. The company is called Super 7. It's super7.com. You can go buy them. My logo's on the back of the boxes.
Right.
And so it's these opportunities that I was blessed with because of the journey. You know what I mean? And it's really because I'm from Omaha, and I never had a bias when it came to music because we played it all. We loved it all.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
Wow.
Man, a whole lot. And we gotta, since you're talking about being from Omaha and getting influence from the world, one thing in Omaha that Omaha is kind of paid back to you is to bring you in with Omaha Performing Arts with the Hip Hop Labs as the new advisor. What,
Amazing.
just in general, what does that mean to you to kind of see, to come from Miller Park and then to now come do all these things about hip hop and to come back to a thing that's should feel very hip hopish, where they're trying to figure it out and make it happen, and they bring you in, somebody who has always figured it out, to come back home to work for and be the advisor for Hip Hop Labs. You know, what does that mean? Kind of what's your role, but what also does that mean to you coming full circle back home with hip hop?
So for me, you know, I've had challenges with being from Omaha and traveling the world, the country, but moving around in hip hop in so many areas that seem to prosper so much more than where I'm from.
Right.
So when you go to Atlanta and you go to Chicago and you go to LA and you go to New York and these places, it's sheer population. The culture is so vast, right? So like, listen, man, I would be at the radio station on a Friday and fly to New York on Saturday and do Madison Square Garden with Flash and come back home on Monday and have to go sit in a boardroom and argue about Black History Month. So I'm saying like it has been challenging for me because the lack of culture and lack of wanting to move Omaha forward.
Right.
The way it should be. Like I said, listen, the 80s were incredible. The 2000s were incredible. I don't know what's going on now, right? Because the elements that we had in the 2000s, everything aligned, okay? The money was there. The community was strong. The radio station was in line and in support. Retail, the entertainment scene, the nightlife, everything seemed to work.
And we're missing a lot of those elements now.
The influx of out-of-towners coming to Nebraska to work in the corporate sector. Church. Everything seemed to line up in the 2000s, and it seemed to be amazing. So now, when I look at things, I feel like there's things that are missing and people are aware. And I don't know if it's the people don't want to work together, it's lack of resources or lack of vision, or maybe it's just not knowing, but it could be, again, what it was. Now we have technology. We didn't have all of that before, right? So for me, when I was approached, to get to your question, when I was approached about the Hip Hop Labs, again, another Houston Alexander production, I want to give back to the community that I'm from. However, it's challenging when it seems like you got racism. I mean, it's always been racism, and it's always been, you know, like there's no money in the Black community, and that was planned.
Right.
Like it's not we're not stupid here. We know what is going on, the lack of resources, the lack of money, the lack of everything, right? It hurts the community. So for me, when the Hip Hop Labs thing came to me, I looked at it like a work in progress, right? Like, okay, they mean well. They want to do a hip hop program and give back to the community and get the community involved, but they don't know what they don't know, right? So they got a little budget. We can figure it out, but when I was asked, I was like, okay, look, maybe I can get involved and help suggest, bring these artists, do this, do that, get these guys involved from a local perspective because they're the experts, they're the legends, like you want to teach a DJ class, get this person to do it. Or, you want to teach an art class or a B-boy class or whatever, get this person to do it. Because I was a kid. Remember we talked about elementary school and junior high, which is now middle school. I have children. My daughter, I have 3 kids. One's grown. But my youngest kid, my daughter is 10 and my son is 13. So when I look at my 13-year-old, I look at him and I'm like, What I was doing when he was 13 was trying to be a DJ and watch Beat Street.
And getting to club, throwing parties, and
Right.
Again, I'm 15 in the Rebels. We're DJing everywhere.
Right.
I'm DJing in the club at 18, and these are 30-year-olds in here. Like, I was 15 on TV. I'm a kid. My son is 13. I can't even imagine my son getting on the city bus and going to the mall and going to parties, and they're getting shot up, and he's at the park and somebody gets shot in the face. That's what we were literally living. My son ain't lived none of that.
Yeah.
But what I'm getting at is I think that the city has a lot to offer and still has a lot of talent. So with the Hip Hop Labs, it was just an opportunity to me possibly to give back to the community that I'm from, and kind of try to interject some of the authenticity that I've always been asked to provide, right? And look, I learned from some of the greatest national heroes ever when it came to this music business and radio. And I looked up to the local guys, right? And I learned that this culture raised me, meaning hip hop, right? So there's so many people in Omaha that deserve to be awarded and thanked and, credited for building what once was and what still could be. Right? In this community. So for me, Hip Hop Labs is just one opportunity, for me to say, okay, that they want to do a hip hop summer camp. So they want to get kids involved. Okay. So what are we going to do? We're going to teach kids how to rap. Okay. Well, then let's teach the kids the art of being an MC, not just rapping on beat. Let's teach them the whole thing.
They can't rap on beat no more. But
that's my point. That's what I'm saying. Like, let's teach them how to, write songs, cadence, hooks, how to rhyme on beat, how to be creative, how to rhyme in different tempos, like how to freestyle, how to create a record, stage show, presence, your vocal, pitch, your breathing, all of that. Okay, you want to teach somebody how to DJ? Okay, let's teach them how to DJ. Let's not put them in front of just a controller. Let's put them in front of turntables with vinyl and the laptop and the controller.
Right.
So then now a 10-year-old can say, show me how to DJ. Okay, this is how you put the record on the turntable. This is how you turn it on. This is how you move. This is how you control it. Now, the next step is this is how you use the digital version of the controller. And this is how you read it from the laptop, and you figure it out. So then that way you have a well-rounded curriculum so the kids can then make the choice to say, okay, I want to be a turntable guy or I want to be a controller guy, girl, whatever, right? Like, give them the choice, because the art of DJing, the hip-hop DJ, not DJing, the art of being a hip-hop DJ started out with 2 records, 2 turntables, and a mixer. Now, I don't want to fight technology and evolution because it's beautiful. But what I'm saying is that if you teach a kid how to DJ only on a controller, then they have no idea how to control a record and move motion with their own hand. They do not know how to make it not jump, not skip. They don't know how to balance it. They don't know how to troubleshoot. They're manipulating sound. It's a wave file. Like, it's not the same. You know what I'm saying? So, again, not all DJs are created equal. Not all DJs do the same thing. So teach someone how to do both. And then, in my opinion, now you got a well-rounded DJ curriculum. Same thing with graffiti. There's all types of different forms of graffiti, street art. It started out tagging, and then you got full murals. You got all kinds of different. Teach it all.
But always, like the
and
analogy I made,
and dancing, the same thing.
Same thing.
Break dancing, the same thing. I mean, cut you off. Sorry, and I ended here on that. Is and then dancing. If you're gonna teach street dancing, right, you got to know that not everything that says hip hop is hip hop.
Right.
Hip hop, I'm going to quote the grandest of them all, Grandmaster Cass. Grandmaster Cass said, hip hop didn't create anything. Hip hop recreated everything.
Mm-hmm.
So hip hop is the embodiment of the remix, right? So everything that hip hop touches gets a little cooler, a little doper, in my opinion, right? So in saying that, the dancing, you got all kinds of dancing. But if you're a ballerina that decides to do a windmill, you're not a hip hop dancer. You're a ballerina that decided to do a windmill. But if you are a b-boy and you popped up on your toes and did a little something and then went back down, you're a b-boy that incorporated ballet. It's still hip hop. It's not the other way around.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that there's all kind of street dancing, and there's an evolution of street dancing. There's dancing, yes, it goes all the way back 30, 40, 50, 60s, all of that. But if you want to talk about hip hop and street dance, the West Coast had a whole different movement going on before hip hop touched it, right? They got a whole different vibe. Then you got the b-boy stuff that came from New York. But even through the 70s and the 80s, hip hop dancing changed in 86. 83, 84, 85, they were windmilling, they were b-boying, they were doing all of that stuff, popping and locking. But in 86, everybody started doing the WAP and the Smurf and the Cabbage Patch. They started doing dances that were associated with songs, and the rappers were making the songs, right?
Right.
Then you get rappers with backup dancers. Then you get Kid and Play. And then you get In Living Color with Jennifer Lopez. And now we're doing a whole different street hip hop dance presentation. If you ain't teaching the evolution, then you're not teaching the right curriculum, in my opinion.
You're right.
So, long story short, I'm just saying that I think Hip Hop Labs is a great tool for that. And that's what I liked about it. And I think that they got a great thing. And there's a lot of, opportunity there for the kids to learn the culture of hip hop by real practitioners and experts of the culture.
Yep. I always like to say, I thank God my dad's first vehicle was stick, because now I can drive anything.
Yeah.
Whether we go automatic, panel shift, UPS truck, because I learned the basics of functions of why the gear shift and how they shift.
Yeah.
I can drive anything.
I mean, that's a great perspective. He's on the board of the Hip Hop Labs. And, again, I'm just saying that just in general, you know what I mean? Anything. If you wanted to learn how to be a cook, right? No one would expect for you to win awards in a week.
Right.
You got to learn how to cook. Right. You're not a prize-winning chef in a month. You think you're going to be that in a month? No, you got to learn how to cook, the fundamentals, and then you curate it to whatever you decide and how beautiful you want your art to be.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That's just my opinion.
Yeah, man, we old, so we like just sitting and talking. So we old. Sorry for my youngsters. Sorry, young God. I'm not sorry. We old. We like doing this, man. But we know it's so much more that can come of these conversations, Rip. But we gone for now, cause we should have a whole story time. I got to start my story time with Eva, cause then we can get everybody else with their stories. And
it's only been 2 hours.
It's only right. It's only. But I want to say we definitely appreciate you giving one the energy and the authenticity for what this really is. And we are I think people like Sierra, myself, and even Young God are people who have that same feeling and energy of creating and doing because we care so much. And it coming from a real place, and a real place of wanting to see everybody thrive in this thing.
Right.
And it don't matter if we quote unquote know what we're doing. And I've quickly learned that almost nobody knows what they're doing. There's just people willing to try and figure the shit out. And those who try to figure it out, they continuously continue to figure things out because they learn that they don't have it figured out and they got to learn something else and put something to it. So
yeah, I mean, if you never try, you don't know if you're good or not.
right.
I mean, the things that I've learned from the elders, is hip hop isn't perfect, and that's why
It's beautiful.
That's why it's the best. Like it was created from nothing, So when Grandmaster Flash and Herc and Bambaataa and Theodore and so many people, DXT and Breakout, and there's so many legends that helped build this, but specifically to Flash, when Flash decided
Put that hand on the record.
that he was going to play the music differently, because be clear, there was always DJs before hip hop and before the hip hop DJ was created. There was always DJs and they played music, right? But Flash didn't like how they were playing it. He liked the disco DJs with the seamless mixing, but he liked what Herc was playing better. So he was like, man, how can I play the best music? I don't like how he's playing it, but he's playing better music.
The best parts of the music.
But not the best parts. He was playing the best music. And the disco DJs are playing, I like how they're playing music. So how can I take the best parts and play them like the disco DJs? So that way we have a seamless mix. It's not a train wreck, and it's not, you got to wait to the end of the song for the best part to come in. That's what Flash did. Flash decided to take 2 records and say, how can I just play the best parts, which is the breakdown, as they would call it, a get down, but the break. And that's what he figured out. He called it the quick mix theory. Quick mix. I got to go from here to here fast. So when he did that, he changed the world, because he took every color. He took white music, black music, Caribbean, pop, rock and roll. It didn't matter. If it was funky,
Japanese
he was
funk.
playing it. Kraftwerk is from Europe. Like, they're not American and they're not black. So he's like, boom, 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 boom. So by doing that, that now gives the opportunity for the MC at the moment to be able to say long form rhymes instead of just short quotes. So now the MC can say long form rhymes, which births rap. It also gave the opportunity for the B-boy to dance to his best part for a long period of time. That's when hip hop was born, in my opinion. Because now you got a DJ who created a style that fits, and it remixes the music that's already out there, and now it creates a whole new pocket, and that pocket is now hip hop. And then now that pocket births the rapper, and then we're going to absorb the graffiti that's behind us.
Right.
And then the break dancer who was already there is now dancing, and now we got a genre. And that came from the youth. It came from nothing. So to me, that's somebody who doesn't got it together, who doesn't know, just doing what their instincts is telling them and just
Figuring out how to
bum rushing it and figuring it out. And by doing that,
I created something.
Right.
Grandmaster Flash created one of the most respected, stolen, manipulated, influential, most profitable, most influential
Cultures.
genre and culture to date. Hip hop has something that no other music has. Hip hop has its own subgenre that created a whole nother multi-billion-dollar industry, which is the culture of like fashion,
Right.
and the influence of it. Like, you get hip hop influence and there ain't even a rapper standing in front of you. Like Gap and all these corporations they'll squeeze a little bit of hip hop into it just to make their stuff just a little bit more cooler. And now it's influenced the whole world.
Right.
You can't go nowhere without hip hop being somewhere, something. every country in the world is practicing in it and participating.
Facts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, to me, that was the same approach we had with Hot 107.7. Instinct, raw talent.
Met opportunity.
That's what hip hop is. It's, again, I boil it all back down to those records in that crate and hip hop. Even when I had jobs, like real jobs, you know what I mean, and work for other people, I always approached it like, okay, how do I get through this? How do I learn? Whatever. Sometimes you do learn on the spot. Sometimes you do get trained, and sometimes you do become good at something. But to his point, sometimes you just get it done.
Right. Facts.
Yes, sir.
Oh man, this is so fire.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah. I'm excited again.
And by the way,
I'm excited.
So amazing.
salute to y'all for having a podcast. This is a dope room.
Thank you.
It's so hip hop. I mean, there's graffiti everywhere and things all over the place, and it's just super dope. But shout out to y'all for continuing to push the Omaha, if I'm saying it right, the Omaha hip hop scene forward. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what we in it for.
And your sneaker soiree,
Yep.
support that. That's super dope. Yeah, the hip hop labs. I mean, there's so many events. You can go to opa.org. I believe so.
Yes.
Yeah.
O-PA.org.
Yes. And you can see all the events. There's a lot of things coming up. Hip hop fashion panels and block party. Shout out to the Culture House. And they're a partner of that, and and everybody, you know what I'm saying, that's doing their thing, in Omaha to continue, moving the culture forward, But listen, there's a lot of history, and thank you for inviting me and letting me talk for 2 hours.
Oh,
Listen,
good.
no complaints.
Right.
So happy to have you.
Only one complaint in the room. But yeah, we definitely appreciate you. Appreciate having you here, man. Yeah, we gonna call it a day
Dang.
for that
I
one.
want to.
I know, but we got families to get back to.
Yeah.
Babysitters on the hook. But yeah, man, we appreciate you, man. The Streets A&R Podcast, you can find us everywhere at Streets A&R. We're on everything but Apple. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, comment, watch, listen, tell a friend to tell a friend, send that DM to them, say, oh, this episode fire. So, man, we
Yes.
appreciate you again, Rip, for coming through. Can't wait to see what you kind of influence and do more, not just in the city, but on a national and a global scale, man.
So
Appreciate it.
at the original Rip on Instagram, at the Spin Firm on Instagram,
Okay.
and that's good enough. And
Yes.
Everybody else, you should have his number already.
but listen, and if I didn't get a chance to say your name, don't hold me accountable, man. It's 40 years of
Of a lot.
a lot.
40
and,
years of a lot.
and your name will get mentioned in this book.
Yes.
Look out for knob
Shout out
ties.
Knob Ties.
Look out for knob ties. It's coming.
Future issues. Stay tuned.
Yep, man. But we gonna get out of y'all hair, man. It's your host, Giddy Jicky with it.
And it's your girl CLB.
Thank you again, Rip. We out of
Yes.
here.
Peace.
Thank you.
The beats, the flow, the rhythm. All movement starts from the streets. Streets A&R Podcast.